There are so many great photographic opportunities at this time of year. You've got beautiful sunsets, sunrise, if you want to get up super early. You've got great night sky stuff. The Milky Way is very visible coming into this kind of time of year. You've got flowers, you've got lush greenery, wildlife is kind of out doing stuff. It can get a little bit hot, it can get a little bit bright, especially in the midday sun, although we've actually got videos on how to conquer that. But let's go over 5 tips that you can use right now throughout summer and for the rest of your life, don't worry about it, that will help you elevate your photography. Let's get into it. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring a brand new fresh photography tutorial. This week, of course, no different. 5 tips on how to elevate your photography. Let's just dive straight into it. Tip number 1, and this is probably one of the things I think about every time I take a photo, is to make sure you find a subject. Sounds really obvious, and when it comes to things like portrait photography or wildlife photography, it's very, very straightforward, right? The subject is the subject you're taking a photo of, whether it's a person when it comes to portraits, or whether it's the creature when it comes to wildlife photography. But that's not always as straightforward as it seems, because when it comes to landscape, you might find a very beautiful view. You might find a very beautiful scene, but you need to find a subject that can be the anchor point of the photo. Now, this is the point that the composition is based around. This is the point that the viewer's eye will naturally rest on in the photo when they're viewing the photo. You need to have that anchor point to actually build the photo around. Now, it could be anything from a beautiful sunset, a specific subject in the scene. It could be some kind of light shining down, one specific aspect of the landscape. And if all else fails, you could always put a subject into the scene, whether you get someone to go and stand in the landscape to give you a sense of scale and again that natural resting point for the eye, or whether you add something else in there like maybe a camera or something else that can sit actually in the scene. This goes for street photography, it goes for food photography, it goes for really anything at all. If you have a specific subject in the scene, you can work out your composition around that because everything can be composed to fit your subject. And like I say, it'll make it easier to view the photo and make a much better viewing experience of that photo. And ultimately, it will just take a good photo to just fantastic. I have made this mistake many, many times when you find a beautiful view and you take the photo, but there's no specific subject. And a beautiful view does not automatically make a beautiful photo. Now, tip number 2 is something I always try and remember now, and that is to slow down. Whether you're doing landscape, whether you're doing portrait, whether you're doing wildlife, whatever it is, just slow yourself down a little bit. Now, sometimes you do have to react quickly. Maybe at a wedding, for example, or an event, you need to make sure you capture the right moments. And especially with wildlife as well, you might need to react quickly to something happening or movement. But in general, if you slow yourself down a little bit, take the process as a whole, you will usually come away with a better photo. For example, landscape photography, if you slow yourself down, a bit of patience, you might be able to wait for some slightly better light. That could mean waiting for a different time of day, so sunset rather than the midday sun, or it could literally mean 5 to 10 minutes for some clouds to pass and just happen to get that ray of light coming through perfectly for your photo. That's all about patience. Yes, a little bit of luck as well, but patience as well and slowing yourself down. This is something I really learned when it comes to wildlife as well, is it is just all about slowing yourself down and having that patience. When I'm out photographing small birds in particular, I find that you can't rush it. You just have to go slowly, in this case through the forest, find little spots that you think are going to work really well for your photo and wait. Follow the sounds of birds, but ultimately it's all about time. You're going to wait for that perfect moment. So slowing yourself down, being a bit patient, really allows yourself to capture the perfect moment. Tip number 3, which will help you elevate your photography, is to understand composition rules, what they are, why they work, and that allows you to then make the decision on whether you want to follow them or not. Knowing the rules doesn't mean you have to follow them. So the rule of thirds, for example, is a great technique. It's a really straightforward and easy way to generally make a better photograph if you don't know how else to compose your photo. Essentially, that means placing your subject on one of the vertical lines that make up kind of the thirds of the photo, or the horizontal lines, or in fact, one of the intersections of those lines. That can generally work very well to compose a photo, but understanding that composition rule, why it works and what it does, allows you to think about whether you actually want to break it. For example, symmetry works great as well. If you have a perfectly centered subject with very similar stuff on either side, that can look fantastic. Or maybe you do want the horizon line right in the middle of the photo. Maybe you just want to have that. Maybe that's the way you want to compose your photo. That's perfectly fine as well. But knowing why you're doing it will always make a better photo. Essentially, making any conscious decision about how you're going to take the photo will almost always make for a better end result. The fourth tip we're going to cover is try a new type of photography. Now, this can either seem a little bit intimidating, a little bit scary, or a little bit pointless. If you love landscape and portrait, why would you ever think about doing product photography, for example? But you can learn so much from other types of photography that inform the types of photography you love to do. The example I always use is this photo of a friend's car that I took. I'd never really photographed cars before, and we wanted to get a really nice kind of misty, atmospheric, cinematic night shot of the car. And since I'd never really done this before, I wasn't entirely sure how to approach it. But what I had done before was night sky photography and night city photography as well. And I was able to kind of use those techniques that I'd learned from doing that to approach how I was going to photograph the car at night. And in the end, I was very, very happy with the results. Same goes actually for product photography as well. Bizarrely, I've found that this has really helped my portrait photography, especially in terms of lighting, where I'm in control of the lights. Playing around with lighting for products and actually experimenting a little bit with that has really informed how I might want to use lighting for portraits. So trying a new type of photography that is a little bit outside of your comfort zone can actually really improve your overall photography skills, but also the genres that you actually love to do as well. The fifth and final tip is to remember that light is almost always the most important thing in your photograph. It affects the sharpness, it's going to create drama, it really informs the kind of mood of the photo. It can be very boring, it can be very exciting. There's so much that light brings to your photo. And I mean, really, it is the entire art of photography, right? Without light, there is no photography. It's always worth keeping this in mind. Whether you're doing landscape, portrait, product, food, whatever it might be, light is so vital to a good photo. It's just so important. It's fundamental to all photography, and it can be easy to forget about it, right? We're so focused on the subject, the composition, what's going on, what we're going to photograph, maybe thinking about the edit, but light is just so fundamental to all of it. It's always worth remembering it is the most important thing. Bad light can ruin otherwise a great photo, and good light can make a great photo out of bad conditions. This portrait, for example, I really, really love, but the actual environment wasn't particularly exciting. It was just kind of an alleyway, and not even a particularly interesting alleyway either. But the light here and the way it falls onto her, I really, really love that. Now, those are 5 tips that you can use instantly to elevate your photography. They're all going to make for better photos. Thinking about all of it and really thinking about any of it is almost always going to give you a better end result. But I'd love to hear more tips. If you have any other tips that we've not covered for how to very quickly and instantly get better photographs, let me know in the comments. I always enjoy reading through those. It's always very insightful, so I love to see it. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. There's always new content all the time. I'll see you next time, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.